In this video, I'm going to show you how to process a traverse in Leica Infinity. I wanted to use this traverse because there are a couple of issues that we need to correct as we go through. The first one that we see is the traverse starts here. If you zoomed in, you would notice that traverse point number 2 is here, traverse point number 1 is here. So the field crew, when they were doing this traverse, they used different point numbers when they close back. This is a closed loop. With Leica Infinity, with Leica Captivate, we do recommend that you use the same point numbers. So the first thing I'm going to do here is correct this issue with the point numbers. To do that, I'm going to go to the inspector. Then I'm going to go to the features here, up on the top of the screen here, and click on the 3 dots. Then I will sort these columns by point ID. So you notice I have traverse 10, traverse 11 here at the top. I know traverse 10 is point number 1. I know traverse 11 is point number 2. So what I will do is highlight traverse 10, come over here to the property grid, and change the point number. So again, this is number 1, and I will hit apply. And then you'll notice that goes away. I'll click on traverse 11, give it a second to update, and then I will type in point number 2, traverse 2, hit apply. So now I have corrected my point numbers. So if I go back to view, you'll now see that we see traverse 1, traverse 2. The other thing I notice here is I have a stray traverse 2 here in the middle, so I'm going to try to find out what's causing that. So to do that, I'll go to my inspector, click on the TPS button here, and then you'll notice if I click on the top button here, we'll see all the TPS observations that were done for this project. But I'm going to go down to the second button here, which is our setup button. And when I look, I notice that I have here, when I set on traverse number 3, or if I'm at station trav 3, that I have 3 setups on trav 3, and 2 of them are, the setup method is set to set orientation. Again, if I go back to my view here, what I should have is a known backsite from traverse 3 to traverse 2. So obviously if there's an issue there, we could expand these out and see what information is in each of these setups, and we could, if there was other points that had been collected, we could change the backsite method to known backsite. In this case, what I see here is there's only one observation in this setup, and that was back to traverse 2. Again, I'll go back to my setups, and I've already checked the other setup on traverse 3, and it's the same deal. So we had something went on in the field there, and we had the wrong backsite method that was used. So in this case, what I can do is I can just click on the first set orientation, hold down my shift key or my control key on my keyboard, click on the other one so that they're both highlighted, and then just simply right click and tell that to delete, and those setups are gone. So now I go back to my view, and you'll see that random setup is gone. Okay, in looking at my data, I know that there's also one other issue because we have 2 setups here on traverse 8. So again, we can expand these out. So I'll take the first setup here on traverse 8, and when I look at it, I see that I have 1 observation to traverse 7 and 2 observations to traverse 9. And then the setup stops. Now again, not sure what happened. Maybe car was in the way, or maybe something else had happened that didn't allow that setup to be completed. So if I go back to my setups and look at the second one on traverse 8, expand that down, and you'll see now that we have a complete 2 sets from traverse 7 to traverse 9, and we also have 2 other observations to some other points. So again, just to clean up my data, I'll go back to setups, and I'll click on this first traverse 8, right click and say delete, and now I have a clean data set, and I'm ready to go ahead and process my traverse. Again, I can go back, look at view. We'll notice that the field crew here had a traverse they created in the field called Cold Point Road. So we're ready to go ahead and process that. So I'm just going to right click on it and go to open Traverse Wizard, and As we noted, there was an issue with one of the setups on Traverse 8, so the Traverse stopped building automatically in the field at that point. So what we can do is go ahead and complete the process here in the Traverse Wizard by selecting Traverse 8, using the arrow here to move it to the right. It automatically steps down to Traverse 9, so we'll move that over. And then it steps down to Traverse 1. We'll move that over, and so now when we go down and look at this here at the bottom, we see that we have a traverse that starts on Traverse 2, back-sighting Traverse 1, and ends on Traverse 1, foresighting Traverse 2. So we have a closed loop. If we're okay with that setup, we can press Next, and then we get an observation review box. If we wanted, we could expand this out. If I use the arrow here, I can see the angles that were located with our instrument. If I click on the distances, I will get a similar box, and I could review the distances for each traverse observation. Once I'm satisfied with all the observations here, I can press Next, and this will allow me to take me to the screen and will allow me to set up the traverse parameters. I can do no adjustment on the traverse, or I could do a compass rule, a transit rule, a 2D helmet, or a least squares adjustment. Since we don't have any cross ties on this and kind of limited redundancy, I'm just going to go ahead and do a compass rule adjustment. There are a couple of other settings that you can apply. I would note here that you have a box here to say apply curvature and refraction corrections. Just as a reminder, curvature and refraction corrections are turned on by default in your Captivate software, so we don't need to do that again here. You also have the ability to use only forward observations. I like to use both the foresight and the backsight information. I think that's going to give you a little better distance information. Also, I believe it's going to help you with your elevations there. So once you have your settings where you want, we'll press Next, and this will take us to the screen to actually calculate our traverse. So a couple of things about this screen. When it comes up, by default, we get no angle distribution as our setting here, and so this would give you what we used to refer to as a raw traverse closure without any angle balancing. I will let you know that this is the only place where you will see this information. Once you select a method of distributing your angles here in the software, so I pressed equally, so it's going to apply the same angle correction to each setup. You'll notice that our 2D accuracy went from 1 in 57,000 roughly to 1 in almost 190,000. So it's the balancing our angles has improved the quality of our traverse. And we'll notice that we have a 1D accuracy of 1 in 25,000. That's our vertical component. If you'll look over here to the upper right corner, you'll see the missed closures. Now again, this northern and eastern missed closure is after we've applied our angle balance. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is distribute my elevation error as well. And so it's going to adjust that 7/100ths out of the vertical component of our traverse as well. So once we have this set where we want, we would go ahead and press Next, and this would take us, this would complete the process and take us to our traverse results. And again, gives you an opportunity to review how much is being changed on each traverse setup. Once you're happy with that, then you can go ahead and press Finish. This will take you back to the screen. If we look back at our inspector now, we do get a warning here that the traverse has, the orientation of the traverse has changed by about 1 minute and 25 seconds. This is because the only point that we held fixed in the traverse is point number 2, and so the azimuth here on traverse 1 did get adjusted. That's because the position for traverse 1 was established by a set orientation on the instrument, and so we don't have fixed coordinates for traverse number 1. If you wanted, you could fix an azimuth on that or fix a coordinate for that to hold this line. So once we're done with that, if we want to produce a report for that, we come up here and click on Coal Point Road, right click and say Traverse Report, and then this will just give us a report of what we just did. We can expand this out. You can go through and review this. It gives me my 1D and 2D closure after the angle balance. It's telling you here what you did with that. Again, we don't show the raw unadjusted closure in this report. It'll show you the results of your traverse, and then you can go ahead and save this as a PDF or an HTML file. And I'll just go ahead and press export. It's exporting this report, and I'll close my report. Now that I've exported it, you'll see down here in the bottom left corner, we do have this archive folder that shows up. We can expand down the reports. If you wanted to actually take a look at that again, what you would simply do is come down here, highlight, right click, and then you can press open the containing folder, and that would take you to the location of that PDF file. Final word about your traverse: if there are no other additional setups from this traverse, you're now done. If you happen to have set an additional point over here somewhere in the middle of the traverse, you would need to run the update setups. That's another video. Hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great day. Thanks.